Edward Brown, host of The Best of Investing, here to remind you to tune in this week on Saturday at 8 p.m. Our guest is going to be Gary Covert. You're not going to want to miss this show. That's The Best of Investing on Saturday at 8 p.m. Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during the show. That certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. Today's trivia theme, miscellaneous trivia. Do want to make a mention here for Pacific Private Money's new fund called the Arrival Fund. Limited time only because they're going to put the cap on this. Once they raise a certain amount of money, they're not going to raise anymore. But they are paying 10%, and it's backed by First Deeds of Trust in a fund that does individual houses that they go ahead and sell the loans very, very quickly. So give them or check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com for more details. Let them know that you heard about their fund on the Best of Investing radio show. They also have their Freedom Fund, which you should check that out as well. All right, our special guest today is Dane Moeller, who is in the mortgage field. Dane, welcome back to the Best of Investing.
Yeah, happy to be here, Edward. Thanks for having me.
All right. So you are quite the expert in the mortgage market. Why don't you give us a rate market? How does it look now and the outlook for the future?
Yeah, so interest rates have been pretty stable the last few months. We had an increase coming out of 2021 and 2022, and everybody thought, oh, this will be short-lived and they'll come back down, but they've really kind of stuck in the same spot.
Yeah.
I'd say, kind of oscillating around 7. So we've had some higher 6s, low 7s, kind of in a wave pattern. Last September, we did dip down into the low 6s, and if anybody took advantage of that, good job. But we've been really in this kind of stable high 6, low 7 pattern for a little while now.
All right. How does it look for the future? Because we know it's all this idea about tariffs and inflation and et cetera, et cetera.
So we have two sides, both pushing on interest rates. So you have inflationary pressure, which would make rates go up. Tariffs are inflationary. A lot of the policies the current administration is trying to push through would be inflationary. At the same time, if we go into a recessionary time period, that would be deflationary. And you're already seeing in the stock market these last couple of weeks, a lot of money moving out of equities and into what they call safe haven. And that includes mortgage-backed securities. So you're seeing a lot of money go into the things that invest in mortgage, and that pushes rates down. So, will we see the inflation side win, which would mean higher rates, or will we see, potentially some of the economic uncertainty and slowdown, quote unquote, win? I don't know if that's a win, but for mortgages, it would be a win. And then we might see, low 6s come back again, this summer, later this year.
Do you personally, that's just a personal opinion, do you think that the reason that money's moved out of the stock market is because of uncertainty with these tariffs and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think, personal opinion is there's a lot of uncertainty about lots of things, tariffs being one of them. And I also think the stock market was just kind of due. I mean, we've been on a run for quite a long time, and, everything was what they call price to perfection. And I think we're a little due for a pullback. I don't know if we're due for a 20% pullback, which we're not there yet, but some people are saying we are going to head that way.
Wow. That
so
would be,
I think it was kind of like ready to have a correction, and then all this uncertainty and stuff kind of pushed it over the edge. It was what.
Gotcha. Tell you what, we're going to go to our first commercial break here. Trivia question is miscellaneous trivia, and that's just sort of a reminder to Dane, which I already know because you've been a guest many times. Don't answer yet till we get back from break. What or which is the largest internal organ in the human body? Which is the largest internal organ in the human body? Call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate, which, by the way, is worth over $100. So it's a nice little gift. Again, which is the largest internal organ in the human body? 888-912-1190. Give us that answer. If you're the first one with the correct answer, you're going to win that tanning certificate. Stay with us. You are listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We are going to be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Dane Moeller of Primary Residential Mortgage. Our first trivia question: which is the largest internal organ in the human body? Dane, what do you think?
Well, I know that the trick question is the largest organ is your skin, but that's not
Correct.
internal, right?
Correct.
So I'm going to go with liver. That's going to be my
Yes.
guess.
That
Oh,
that
look
is
at that.
correct. Yeah, you got the you got. I mean, that's the answer we wanted, and then the answer that we didn't even ask for. You are correct that the largest organ is the skin. Very good. All right. Now let me ask you, with the stuff that's going on in the mortgage market. As a residential mortgage broker, I mean, I got to think that you rely on not only purchases of houses but also refis. So has that slowed down quite a bit, or?
Yeah, I mean that portion of our business is certainly a lower percentage than when interest rates are lower, right? Really don't do a lot of, hey, let me just get a lower interest rate on my loan, and
Yeah.
kind of do that. Most refinances are to access equity in the home, to buy out a partner. Someone may
Mhm.
have a very small loan and a lot of other debt where hey, moving up an interest rate will change. Those sort of things. So it's certainly slowed down. It's not nothing, but normally it would be about 50% of our business, and it's more like maybe 10, something like that.
Oh wow. Okay. Because I think there have been some mortgage companies that have laid off some of their employees, haven't they? Because they just
Oh yeah.
can't. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, mortgage companies have definitely laid off operations staff, and then there's the number of originators, people who are licensed to sell mortgages and arrange them, has dropped significantly. It's down 75% from the
Wow.
highs in 2021. So, and realtors also are down quite a bit in terms of the number that renew their licenses and pay their fees.
Interesting. That's a kind of a good gauge, and I guess for the veterans, or the survivors like you guys. I mean, I would think that would be kind of good. There's maybe a smaller amount of loans out there, but if there's fewer operators, so to speak, that you guys still would be fairly busy then.
Yeah, I've been doing this since 2002, so I've been through a lot of cycles. I mean, 2007 and 8 for one, a lot of people left the business, and while the industry is correcting itself in terms of the number of deals and number of people in the industry, it's painful, right?
Yeah.
But once it finds its new equilibrium, then it's kind of okay for everybody who's left and is a veteran and expert, and then eventually things will get kind of busy again, and you'll have a really good time where there's less people than deals, right? And then people
Yeah.
enter the industry again, and it's a cycle. This downslope, though, it's not fun. We're still doing fine, though. We're still helping a lot of people buy houses, and we have a lot of innovative products and great service. So a lot of people are still ringing our phone every day for help.
Which is interesting because and I made a little a commercial here for Pacific Private Money, and it's interesting because you guys don't compete. It's kind of a hand and glove type of situation because they don't generally like their arrival fund. The interest rates are higher, so it's only what happens is people go to you first, and then if for some reason it's not working out with you, a lot of times you'll refer them out.
Yeah, you guys are a great resource, and Pacific Private Money's been a fantastic partner for us in terms of giving people an option that we can't help, and sometimes it's just that we can't help them fast enough, and then they'll come back to us
Exactly.
when their situation has changed a little bit, and we'll do the loan later. So
Yeah.
it's we're similar to, say, a mechanic. You don't work on every type of vehicle, right? We don't help absolutely every type of person who wants to borrow money. So it's great to have partners like yourself to jump in on the right people, and then we can help other people, and we can all fill the ecosphere.
Very good. Okay. And the state of the housing market, what are you seeing there?
So we've been in a depressed supply, depressed demand kind of mode for the last few years, right? Much less buyers because of interest rates, much less sellers because of interest rates, right? Same
Yeah.
cause. Um, we're starting to see nationally that supply is increasing a little bit, and we're not seeing the buyer side increase. So we are seeing nationally a little bit increase in supply. I do expect home prices to appreciate a little slower this year as a result. unless we get a dip in interest rates. Because if interest rates go down to the low sixes, that buyer pool, when they dropped in September, the application levels jumped really quickly nationwide. So it showed everybody there's a lot of demand on the sideline. If we get even a little drop in rates, we're going to see a big jump in buyer side, and then we will have price pressure on homes. So really, it's going to be a tale of the interest rates this year, but good news for buyers. There is a little bit more supply coming on the market as either new homes get built or people just have to move despite their low interest rate. Because there are people you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Exactly. Okay. Let's see here. Before we go to our second trivia question here, it's time for our silly joke of the week. All right. So a collector of rare books ran into an acquaintance who told him he had just thrown away an old Bible that he found in a dusty old box. He happened to mention that it was a Gutenberg somebody or other had printed it. And not Gutenberg, gasped the collector. He goes, yeah, that was it. He goes, oh, you idiot. You've thrown away one of the first books ever printed. A copy recently sold at an auction for $500,000. He goes, oh, I don't think this book would have been anything worth anything close to that much. He says, it was all scribbled over on all the margins by some guy named Martin Luther. All right. And our trivia question is number 2. What is the chemical symbol for sodium? All right, you got to remember your chemistry class for that. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Again, what is the chemical symbol for sodium? All right, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Dane Moeller of Primary Residential Mortgage. Second trivia question, what is the chemical symbol for sodium?
So, little known fact, I went to Cal Berkeley and I started there in the School of Chemistry, my first year as a chemical engineer. And if I didn't know this, it would have been bad training. Na is the...
That is correct. And of course, for salt, it's sodium chloride, which would be NaCl, right? Okay. All right. Very good. Good to see. Me, I only had 6 years of high school, so that's how I remembered. Okay. So Dane, from Primary Residential Mortgage, first of all, if you're definitely one of the best in the business, how do people get a hold of you if they have either questions or they're looking for getting a mortgage?
Thanks, Edward. The easiest way is the old-fashioned phone call. You can reach me at 415-870-2752. A lot of people like to only send emails. I love still talking on the phone or doing Zoom. So give me a call, 415-870-2752.
Okay. And give out your email, though, also. In case
I'll give out my email. My email is is D as in David, Moeller. So D Moeller at PrimeRes, which is PRIMERES as in Sam.com.
Very good. Okay. So what kind of new and novel mortgage products you guys have?
Yeah, so although we're not competing with Pacific Private Money on the hard money front, we are expanding the credit box to help more people, specifically self-employed people or people that have a little difficulty proving their income. We have some what we call community products now that don't require income to be stated or listed at all. And so that one is a pretty good one if you have good credit, some money in the bank for a down payment. If your income is non-existent or really hard to prove, that's a great product that we offer now. Also doing 1099 loans or K1 loans without looking at tax returns or profit and loss loans. So again, people that are self-employed, even if you own less than 25% of the company, if you're self-employed, let's say you're an attorney, you get a K1, your partner, but hey, on the tax returns, things maybe not as pretty as you'd like. We do have solutions for that.
And you're talking your typical 30-year fixed mortgage?
Yeah, generally 30-year fixed. These loans do often have interest-only options. So 30-year fixed principal and interest or interest only. And then interest only would be the first 10 years and then principal and interest after that.
And what kind of rates are we looking at nowadays? I know there's conforming and jumbo.
Yeah, so as you would imagine, as the risk of the loan increases, the interest rate increases, just like at Pacific Private Money. So if kind of your best case scenarios in the mid high sixes, Now we're going to go up into the 7s or 8s with these kind of alternative programs.
Okay, so an extra point and a half, roughly.
Yeah,
Okay,
point
and
and a half, maybe 2 points, depending on credit score and down payment.
any other fees like points, that sort of thing?
There will often be points on these kind of deals. Usually 2 points is the kind of the standard. That can all be negotiated regarding the interest rate and things like that, but that's probably a good starting point on most of these kind of deals.
Okay. Well, obviously, and I could just imagine if somebody has a fair down payment, then the lower LTV should command a little better.
Yeah. I mean, just like anything, with mortgages, the lower the risk, the better the interest rate. So if you're coming in real strong on your down payment, that's a lot less risk to the back end investor. So you'll get a better rate or better terms.
Let's talk. We have a couple of minutes here before another break. Let's talk a little strategy. It sometimes just drives me crazy thinking that people, if they're having problem paying their mortgage, they kind of put their head in the sand. And if I understand it correctly, that's like the worst thing to do. They should call the bank to say, "Hey, listen, I'm having problems. Let's try to work things out." Is that better advice?
Absolutely. And it's interesting you asked that because someone called me yesterday to ask that exact question. And I told them the number one thing you need to do is communicate with your servicer, let them know what problems you're having, and work out a plan. These servicers, they're incentivized by the government. The rules are in place. They really have to work with you, and they want to. Foreclosure is expensive. It's a pain. They don't want to do that. But if you're not responding at all, they really don't have any other choice. So definitely give them a call. You can ask for a forbearance, which is a time away from paying, or putting the stuff you're behind in what's called arrears at the end of your loan, or maybe a modification for some lower payments for a time period to help you kind of get back on your feet. But whatever the reason is, even if it's not some huge event that's quote unquote valid, if you're falling behind and having a hard time, contact your servicer. And secondly, don't fall for any sort of foreclosure rescue plans from outside companies. Because if a notice of default is filed, you'll start getting phone calls because that's public records. And most of those companies really want to charge you money and not necessarily help you. So talk with your servicer directly, be honest and open with them on what you can afford, and then work out a plan and hopefully get back on your feet and move on with your life.
And when does it hit your credit score?
Well, as soon as you're 30 days behind on a payment, so if it was due February 1st, if you don't pay it in February, it'll hit your credit. If you're 2 months behind, that's worse than one, and so on. Do your best. And the mortgage, I would say, try to pay everything. If you got to pay the minimums, that's okay. But mortgage is probably the number one bill you want to pay.
I would think so. All right, here's our third trivia question. What is the name of the giant silver sphere at Epcot? So we're talking at Disney World here. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with correct answer wins that tanning certificate. What is the name of the giant silver sphere at Epcot? All right, don't touch that dial. The best of investing will bees right back. Welcome back to the best of investing one more time. Edward Brown here, along with Dane Moeller of Primary Residential Mortgage. And our third trivia question, what is the name of the giant silver sphere at Epcot? Dane, you know the answer to that one?
I would have called it the Epcot sphere, which is not going to be correct. So no.
I didn't know. It's called the Spaceship Earth. Okay. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right. So Dane, give us some stories of how you help people. Because are you the first person generally, or a lot of times, okay, I want to buy a house. Sometimes I might just call my broker, my banker who I bank with, or you'd be the first person I'd call because you're an independent mortgage broker.
Yeah, so we're an independent mortgage lender, meaning we are the ones who lend out the funds. A banker's a great place to go if you have a lot of money at the bank, right? If you have $10 million with Charles Schwab, call your banker at Charles Schwab, and he's going to take care of you really well. But if you just have your basic checking at Wells Fargo and you call them, from my experience, not going to get much in the way of service from a large institution like that if you're not a highly valued customer, let's say,
And
based
give
on
us
your
the
value.
difference, because you did correct me. I said mortgage
Yeah.
broker. I
Yeah.
actually meant to say mortgage banker, because I know you're the bank rather than just an independent versus a broker. Give the audience a little bit of a education on that.
Sure. So there's generally three different types of places you'll go get a mortgage. One is a depository, like a Wells Fargo, where you have your deposits. Again, great option if you're a large account holder. They will give you, the sweetheart deal for that. Disadvantage if you're a small holder. They also usually have very limited products. Um,
Okay.
then myself, we are a mortgage lender, meaning that we are a bank that lends mortgages, but that's all we do. We don't have other products. We don't do insurance or investments or deposits. We will have a pretty wide range of products, be pretty flexible, and have pretty good rates, but we're kind of in the middle on all of those things. Then there's a mortgage broker who's a middleman. You'll talk to them and they'll go out to all the different banks they know and kind of try to find the best fit. A mortgage broker might have a wider range of products than a lender because they're not limited to what their bank can do. If you have a very odd property or really strange situation, a mortgage broker is probably the right option to find a
But,
solution.
but
But they're going to charge a little more.
will a mortgage broker call you? I mean, do you have
No,
a
so
relationship?
we
No.
don't do. So that's we, we do what's called retail lending, which means with us and the consumer.
Okay.
Wholesale lending is the type of bank that will work with brokers, and they don't talk to the customer directly. So that's a
So
wholesale.
how do you? I mean, how would people? Obviously everyone's heard of Wells Fargo. How
Yeah.
do people know about primary residential mortgage?
So I've been 100% repeat and referral for the last, 15, 20 years. So it's all word of mouth. You do a great job for someone, and they're going to tell their friends and relatives, and their realtor is going to be real excited. Wow, you finished early. Everything you promised came in. The costs were even lower than expected. This was the least stressful experience I ever had buying a house, and that just generates a buzz and keeps my phone ringing. Thankfully, knock on wood. But that's how people find us. We don't spend a lot of money on marketing that then we'd have to recoup charging people, right?
Yeah.
We'd rather just keep our margins low and have relationship situations.
Yeah, because I was just going to say that I don't remember seeing too many ads for primary residential mortgage.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
guess.
if you think, there are other companies. We're a privately owned company. There are public mortgage lenders like a Loan Depot or a Rocket, right? And they spend
Yeah.
millions and millions on stadium naming rights and who
Yeah.
knows what, right? And that money has to get repaid somewhere. And logically, that would come out of the fees they charge their customers, right? So
Yeah.
that's not our model. Our model is just to be a relationship lender and do a fantastic job and hope that speaks clearly to other people who may be looking for a referral or a great place to get a loan.
Very good. Should someone what advice would you give someone, a fixed rate versus a variable rate, adjustable rate?
So in years past, adjustable rates have been a great solution when interest rates are high. When I bought my house when interest rates were high in 2010, and I did an adjustable because it was a big spread from a 30-year fixed. Because of how many loans were repaid in 2021, the back end investors in mortgage are very afraid of giving out loans that are going to get paid back very quickly because they won't actually earn any money, and they spent money to get those loans. Adjustable rate mortgages scream, I want to refi as fast as I can, right? That everybody who gets one is going to say, hey, as soon as rates drop, I'm getting off this loan, right? That's why they're
Yeah.
getting it. So the benefit of an ARM in terms of a lower interest rate is really not there. In fact, most ARMs now come with an extra cost. So you're kind of defeating the purpose of getting that adjustable if you have to pay 1 or 2 or 3 extra points at closing. So for most people, it really doesn't make sense because they're saying, well, I'm going to get the ARM because I want to refi in a few years. And then you're like, but you got to pay, 15,000 extra bucks to get it. And they're like, well, then what's the point? I'd rather get a 30-year fixed and just be safe. So for anyone getting a loan, certainly ask, compare the offers, right? There's no reason not to see the difference. But I would say we are doing very few, if almost no adjustables once we do examine those numbers.
No matter whether the interest rates are in the low position or in the high position?
It's just this market. I think when rates come back down and the mortgage servicers can feel a little more comfortable that the loans they are doing are going to stick around for a while, then we'll see the arms kind of come back. But really, it's that, you always have to remember, for every loan you borrow, there's someone who lends, right? And they have an expectation of earnings. And if their expectation is you're only going to make 6 to 10 to 12 payments, well, they need to charge you up front, right, to make the money they need to make.
All right, audience, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We'll be back with not only closing comments, but I'm going to ask Dane about buy-down mortgages. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Dane Moeller from Primary Residential Mortgage. No trivia question this trip, but Dane, what about people who suggest maybe it's possible or probable to do what they call a buy down of a mortgage? Explain what that is and how that would look.
So there's two types of buy downs. There's a permanent buy down. And what that is that you pay extra upfront to have a lower interest rate and lower cost over the life of the loan. So that's commonly referred to as paying points, and certainly something to examine. Strangely, I advise paying points when rates are very low, because that's a loan you're probably gonna have forever, right? If you can go from 3.25 to 2.75, like, there you go, that's your forever loan, right? If you're at 7 and you pay that money to get to 6.75, you might refi next year or the year after, and maybe you didn't recoup that cost. So you would think when rates are high, you want to buy it down, but really, most likely, not a lot. You might want to pay a half
Unless
point.
you can buy it down to a 2% interest rate, then it might make sense.
If that was possible, it would be a different equation. So those are permanent buy downs, and certainly worth exploring and looking at the cost versus benefit. Just take the cost up front, divide it by the savings, and figure out how much time it would take to recoup. Pretty easy math. A thing that has come up really on trend the last few years is a temporary buy down. That's been on social media a lot. And what that is a subsidy paid by the seller generally to get you a lower payment during the first 1, 2, or 3 years, with 2 being the most common. So let's say you have an interest rate of 7. The seller will provide a credit. And for the first year, you can pay as if your loan was 5. And then the next year, you can pay as if your loan was 6%. And then it goes to that 7. And for those first 2 years, the seller's money covered the difference. You're still charged 7. It's just that the seller's money paid that 2% difference in the first year, 1% in the second year. I think it's a cool strategy as long as the seller is already covering all your other closing costs. Okay? And that's something people miss out on. So let's say the seller was going to give you $10,000, and you could either use that to cover your closing cost or do this temporary buy down, right? And let's say your closing costs were $10,000 for the sake of this. I personally would much rather have $10,000 more in the bank on day one and make my 7% payment the whole time than have that $10,000 spread out over 2 years and kind of like doled out to me, right? Each month.
Yeah. Well, especially if you have the discipline to not spend it.
Sure. I mean, there are certain situations where, like you're saying, somebody might say, but don't give me that money because I'm going to go to Vegas and I'm going to blow it and then I'm going to be in trouble. If you're that sort of person, maybe it's a different equation. But I think for most people, if you think about, give me $10 today or give me $10 spread out over the next 2 years, I just take the $10.
Well, so, also, especially like what happens if your circumstances change and you want to sell the house in 9 months.
So if that happens, on a temporary buy down, very common question. Well, what happens if I refi or sell? Yeah. They will credit back towards your principal anything that remains in that subsidy. So you don't lose it. It becomes a principal reduction. Gotcha. If you're selling, that means you get it. So you don't miss out on anything. But again, I think they're great. And we do have circumstances where the seller's paying all the closing costs and then that credit. And then it's like, oh, that's awesome. That's a huge win and let's do it. And so we do them. But I try to educate people on this isn't This isn't money that can't go somewhere else and maybe be more beneficial if you have a certain amount of credit from the seller. Temporary buy downs can't be paid for by the buyer, so you can't just choose to do it, unlike a permanent buy down where the buyer can and usually does pay down.
Gotcha. All right, Dane, give out your information one more time, and then we'll give our thoughts for the day.
Yeah, thanks, Edward. It's Dane Moeller, Primary Residential Mortgage, 415-870-2752. And that email is dmoeller, DMOLER, at primres, that's PRIMERES, as in Sam.com.
Very good. All right, her thoughts for the day. So someone once told me that I am so optimistic in a room full of manure, I'm the one looking for the pony. I like that one. And some advice I heard here: fight like you're the third monkey going up the ramp on Noah's Ark. There you go. You got to fight for that. All right, audience, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.